Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is FamCam and welcome back to It's Getting Late. This is the first episode I'm shooting as a bald man. Don't get used to this though, this may be temporary. I'm trying out a new look, but not the point of this video. The point of this video is we have an incredibly special guest. Now, usually we interview ASMRs on this podcast, but we've decided to do something a little bit different this time. As some of you know, I'm autistic, and Gemma here is a really good friend of mine that I've met through the ASMR community, but her channel is all about autism and what she deals with on a daily basis with autism and raising awareness of the whole thing. She does videos on it and also does lives. They're a lot of fun. I suggest you check them out. Get to know her. She is a fantastic human being. Please welcome to the show, Gemma Journey Grace. How you doing?
Hey brother, I'm good, and I want to say thank you for having me and invite me to be part of this fantastic podcast. I'm rather excited to talk to you and talk to your audience, and I hope we can educate some people, and I'm just really excited to be here.
Likewise, I'm really glad to have you on here. So, we got a few topics to talk about, mostly relating to autism, but because this is an ASMR podcast mainly, we will talk a little bit about that too. But let's start with you. What inspired you to start your YouTube channel? And could you give us a little explanation of what people can expect when they come to it?
Yeah, sure. So I started my YouTube channel basically after kind of getting a referral to my autism diagnosis, and the social worker who I was on at the time said to me, why don't you go home, go onto YouTube and research what autism is? I was like, why would I want to do that? But okay, I guess I'll have a look into it. So I kind of hummed and hawed for a couple of weeks. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I don't understand what I'm looking for. What am I meant to be researching? So I was like, okay, just jump into it. Didn't really think about it. And I researched, and the one thing that stood out to me was there was no autistic female creators my age range at all.
Really?
None. And I'm like, what, where is everybody? Where's all the females? So my social worker rang me back the next day and said, did you find anything, Gemma? I was like, yeah, actually I want to say I'm a bit concerned. She goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, there's no autistic female creators within the mid-20s to early 30s range that I could find. She went, yeah, isn't that a bit weird, Gemma? I was like, yeah, a little bit weird. Why? And she goes, do you see what I done there, Gemma? I went, what? She goes, I kind of tricked you. I misled you a little bit. I'm like, oh, okay. Why would you do that? Why would you mislead me? I don't understand. And then she was like, I want you to start your own channel. I was kind of provoking you to think. And I was like, oh, okay. And it just kind of went from there, and I kind of hummed and hawed again. I'm like, why would I do that? Why would I put myself out here to be mocked, bullied, maybe laughed at? I'm like, you know what? I'll try. I put out one video, which was like, I think a minute, 2 minute intro, just introducing myself, and I put it onto private. Then when I went back about a week later, I was like, oh, I've got quite a lot of good views on it. So I unprivatized that one and I uploaded another one, put that on private. And I'm like, okay, maybe I could do something like this, maybe a podcast version or just an upload channel in general. So I started doing it, and I started uploading in 2016. I started uploading. So
Oh, you've been at it for a while then.
yeah, I've been on YouTube for 8 years in January.
Wow. So you've been doing YouTube about twice as long as I have. I
Yeah.
started ASMR almost 4 years ago. Just under
Yes,
that.
I remember the launch of your channel actually. For
Yeah.
everyone in your audience who doesn't know when FamCam started, I remember I was researching ASMR because I have really bad sleep problems.
Yeah,
And
same.
FamCam's channel actually came up in my search recommendations. It was like new
Really?
ASMR channel. Yeah.
All this time I
And
thought you knew me because of Mixlr123.
well, yeah, that and her channel, yeah. And I was going through the ASMR section because I've listened to ASMR for like 9, 10 years at this point, and I was like, "Who is FamCam? I don't know who this guy is." And I think I clicked on I think it was the meditation video you'd done, the guided meditation talk that you'd done.
Oh,
So
you
it's
mean
like,
my first ever video?
Yeah.
on the
And
channel.
I clicked on it and I was like, what is this? And I was like laying here in my bedroom and I'm like, okay, I put my headphones on, I'll just lie back and relax to it. And I got literally, I think like 6 minutes into it, I was gone. I
Wow.
was, and I'm like, what is this? What is this? And I remember going to your next video. I'm like, I need to go back to the first one again. So I put the first one back on. And I'm like listening. And within like 10 minutes, I could feel myself going, Gemma. And I literally just dropped. I was like, boom. I was like,
Wow.
sold. Okay. And I saw you in Mixed Laura's stream. I'm like, I really like your channel. You're really smart. You're a really good guy. Like I love your content, and I literally subbed to you then and there. I'm like, I literally haven't looked back. Like you, Minx Laura, and a few other people who I watch religiously. Like I watch you all the time. So
Aw, thank you. Wow, I couldn't be more flattered, and I'm honestly starstruck to hear all this. To be perfectly honest, I had no idea that that it didn't take Laura for you to discover me. You just found me on a happenstance before that. That blows my mind. I didn't think that was possible
yeah, you came off
because
my homepage. It was like new ASMR section. I'm like, oh, and I saw your name. I'm like, Famcam, what's that? And in my head, I kind of had an assumption about you. I'm like, Famcam, like it sounds like about photography or cameras.
it
And
does. The name actually does relate to that in a bit because a lot of people think the name fam relates to family or like, nah, fam, or what up, fam, that kind of slang. It has nothing to do with any of that. Fam stands for film, animation, music. Cam, the K stands for Keith, my real name, and Cam rhymes with fam. That's where the name came from. I actually thought of it as a business idea, a multimedia business idea, about 5 years or so before I started the channel.
oh wow,
Yeah,
that's
before I
see,
even knew what ASMR was.
that's why I must have clicked into it. Like when I looked at your name, I'm like, Famcam, like what name is that? And I kind of was like picking my head, going, what's that mean? What's that mean? And I remember speaking to Laura about you, and I'm like, what's his name about? And she went, well, Gemma, it's to do with like film and photography. And she said about
Yeah,
you like animation and stuff. I was like, cool. I love photography. I love animation too. That's cool. So that it made me more intrigued about you. I was like, I have to like this guy. So that was the beginning of our friendship, really.
yeah. Let's dive more into autism because we are two autistics talking about autism in this video. But
Yeah.
um, uh, one thing I found particularly interesting about you, and this is probably the biggest difference between the two of us when it comes to autism, is that you were late diagnosed, and that is a
Yeah.
struggle that I have zero clue about because I was 2 when I was diagnosed, so I don't understand those struggles. So I'd like to ask you about that. What
Yeah.
kind of struggles did you have to deal with pre-diagnosis, and how long ago were you diagnosed?
Yeah, so the pre-struggles I guess that I've had is that I've always been socially awkward. I've always kind of had situations where I can't deal with big crowds. I've always been very an anxious person. My family would take me out to situations, to parties, to birthday parties,
Hmm.
and they'd always be like, "Why is Gemma acting so weird? Like, why won't she come and join in? Like, why is she not greeting people? Why won't she go over and give someone a hug?" And every
Totally.
time people would come up to me, it's like this guard would just go vroom
Hmm.
and just like defend myself. I'm like, okay, why don't I like people touching me? And still to this day, I'm very nervous about people getting too close to me. And then my mum kind of said to me, "Shouldn't something's wrong, Gemma? Shouldn't it's not just this? It's the fact that you're very sensitive about your food. I still can't have my food touching on certain meals and certain dishes. I have to have it
Interesting.
all separate." And my mum's like, "Gemma, you're just being a spoiled brat. Grow up.
Oh
Like,
boy.
stop being so fussy." And I'm like, "Oh no, okay." And then my dad kind of started getting on the bandwagon with my mum. He was like, Gemma's a bit different. We have to kind of be a bit more lenient with her and explain things more to her. And I'm like, why are you treating me like I'm stupid? I'm not stupid. Like, I may be a bit slow and kind of delayed in my actions, but I'm not stupid. And then my mum was like, okay, we'll refer her to the doctors because at the time I was having issues with my eyesight, and my mum was like, maybe is it common with something else? So my mum was looking up the symptoms. I was about 3 or 4, and then I remember having my first assessment when I was about 6, I think 5 or 6, and my mum took me to this clinic to see the doctor, and the doctor told her within 10 minutes, "Oh no, Gemma's not autistic. She's just a bit slow. She'll grow out of it. She'll be fine. Leave it alone." And then I kind of got ignored,
Ooh.
and then I got ignored for the next few years up until I was about mid-teens, about 16, 17. My health started going down a serious slip of anxiety, depression, and it wasn't till I started going through my GCSEs at 15 that my mum's like, "Okay, this behaviour has to stop. We have to go back to the doctors again and start the whole process." I'm like, oh. And we saw these 2 female doctors, and they basically told my mum in a nutshell that she was pushy, she was overprotective, and there was nothing wrong with me. I was just depressed and I'd get over it, and sent me on my way. So that took another 2 years to go back. This was 2011. And then I didn't go back to the doctor again until 2013. By that time I'd hit the roof. My depression was sky high. I was getting to the point where I was skipping school. I wouldn't get up and get dressed. I wouldn't shower. I was struggling with my eating. I would socially withdraw from everything. I got to the point where my family wouldn't see me for weeks at a time. I would go in my bedroom, just shut the door, and it'd be just Gemma being considered being awkward. And then eventually I was diagnosed at the age of 26 in 2014.
Wow. 26. That is a long time to get diagnosed, and especially considering there have been many times where you could have been diagnosed by doctors and have not been. That must have been really rough, especially considering getting misdiagnosed as just simply being depressed or stubborn or whatever the case may be. That would definitely drive somebody crazy. I don't know how I would have been able to handle that. And like I said, it's something that I'll never understand from my own experiences, because I was 2 when I was diagnosed. The only experiences that I've had that relate to it was through experiencing bullying in school from kids who did not understand it, and some kids that did understand it were just arrogant little shits. But it happens. On the topic of bullying and ableism, which people like us experience a lot more than we may care to admit. Fortunately, I experience it a lot less now because I'm now a full-grown adult, spending more time with full-grown adults that are more mature, hopefully anyway. But as kids, you know, growing up with autism is absolutely brutal. And would you care to share a time or two that stood out to you in your experience with bullying and ableism?
Yeah, sure. So I think the time for me was when I was at high school, when I was kind of trying to find out who I was, and I was actually put into a special needs class for 5 years of my whole high school career. So a lot of the children, young adults at the time in my class were all some form of disability or mental health issue or behavioural issue. And my tutor was like, "Gemma, we don't know exactly what your problem is. We know that you're struggling, your grades are dropping, you're not paying attention to the coursework, and we're concerned about your behaviour." So I'm like, okay. And then I remember going into student isolation, and this one teacher said to me, "I know what I think's wrong with you." And I was like, "What's wrong with me then?" And he said to me, he goes, "I believe strongly that you're on the spectrum." He goes, "Your behaviour is erratic." He goes, "Your eye contact is limited. Your body language says a completely different thing to what you're saying. You're very awkward. Before I'd be always closing my arms, or I would look away at someone." And he thought, "Gemma, look." And they'd literally would like click their fingers at me, or have people would tut at me, and they're like, "Gemma," I'm like, "Oh, don't do that. That really aggravates me." So through school, the teacher used to always do this. She'd be like, "Gemma, look at me. Gemma, look at me." And I'm like, oh. I remember going through
Yeah, it
school
feels like
going,
you're being treated like a dog at that point.
yeah, exactly.
No
So
hate
I
towards
kind of had to
dogs. I
deal with
love
it.
dogs, but you
No,
get my
I
point.
love dogs too. Yeah, yeah, totally. I get what you're saying. Yeah, it's for me. I think I got the worst part of it was I got bullied by my cousin, and at the time she was 2.5 years older than me, and she promised to be like my protector. She'd walk me to school, she'd walk me home. She lived about 5 minutes walk away from my mum's house, and she promised to be the person who would have my back. And it got to so the bullying got so bad that she actually stuck a note on my back at one point, and the note said that she would commit suicide because I was her
Jesus.
cousin. And then it got worse. She actually got someone to follow me home one day, and the person hit me with tree branches. I had all bruising down my back,
Oh
down my
my
legs.
God.
The police were called, and since then, I'm going back now. What, this is 2002 to 2006, and she bullied me so badly that the police basically wanted her to stay away from me. And to this day, she's not spoken to me. I've cut all ties with her. I have nothing more to do with her.
Good.
So unfortunately, she basically said that I was too weird to be family, and she didn't want a disabled cousin. So I cut all
Wow.
ties with her. I was just like, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. Never should anybody put up with that kind of crap. That is unacceptable.
So that's one of the worst situations I've had. And I think another reason was I got beaten in school by a girl in my class who used to always like try and pull my hair. And she'd call me the I'm not going to say the word because it's offensive, but the
Hmm.
S word that people can guess what I'm aiming at. I'm not going to say it because it's a derogatory word. I don't want to upset or if anyone on the podcast, especially not you, brother. So I'm not going to use it, but you can get my drift what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, that word was used to me quite a few times. It's like, oh, why does Gemma act such a And basically, I was called several names. And it was like, well, Gemma's just weird. She's just odd. She's just difficult. And I'm like, no, I'm not really. So basically, yeah, I was having my hair pulled by this girl in my class, and it got so bad that I ended up having bald patches at the back of my head. And at first, my
Jesus.
parents thought that it was just stress. And I got taken to the doctors after school, and the doctor's like, "Oh, are you trying to self harm?" And I was like, "No, why would I do that?" And he goes, "Well, you're going through GCSEs, you're going through one of the toughest times of your life. It's normal. We see all people like you all the time, like, something to be ashamed of." I'm like, "But I'm not self harming. Like, I'm not someone who would do that." And he goes, "Are you sure about that?" And he goes, "Are you just trying to lie to your parents?" I was like, "No." I was like, "I live with
Wow.
my mum. Like, she would know if I was doing anything." And then the doctor like, "Okay." And then he kind of gave me this special shampoo stuff. He's like, "It'll help grow your hair back." I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "But you might have to wear a hat or something for a few weeks." I'm like, "Oh." So I walked into my classroom on the Monday morning. My teacher was like, "Why have you got a hat on, Gemma?" I'm like, "Because I have a medical issue and I'm not willing to talk about it." And she was like, "You need to take the hat off." And I'm like, "No." And she's like, "If you don't take the hat off, you'll end up in detention." I'm
Of
like, "I'm
course.
not taking the hat off because I can't." And she's like, "Why?" I said, "Because there's something that I don't want to talk about." And she took my hat off me, and I'm like, I remember just going like this, putting my hand on the back of my head like that.
Mm.
And she said, What are you hiding, Gemma? What's wrong?" And I'm like, "I don't want to show you." And I end up putting my head down like this and walking around my head down. And she's like, "What's the matter? What's the matter?" I'm like, "Nothing. I just don't want to talk to anyone." And she goes, "Come here, Gemma." And she took me to the toilet outside of the classroom. I just put my head down to an emission. "Oh." She's like, "What's happened?" I went, "I've been having my hair pulled out by one of the girls in the class, and I've now got bald patches in the back of my head." And she's like, "Oh, okay, I'll give you your hat back." And she's like, "I didn't realize that you're being that badly bullied." And I'm like, "Yeah." And then she kind of said to me, "Did I want time off?" I took like 2 or 3 days off school at that point. And then I said to my mum, "Why do I have to go back? Why do I get bullied so badly?" And then it kind of started clicking with my behavior, and I realized that something wasn't quite right with me. I'm like, okay, maybe there is a potential mental health issue or something that wasn't recognized. And then I hit college, and my tutor at college actually recognized it and was the one who actually referred me in the end. He was he kind of recognised the eye contact and the body language. He's like, Gemma, what's wrong? He goes, why are you so anxious? And I got so snappy with him. I'm like, nothing's wrong. I'm fine. And he was like, no, you're not. And I'm like, yes, I'm fine. I'm just falling behind the corset. I'm tired. Because we're doing corset and placement at the same time. So I'm having to do written work and theory work at the same time. I'm like, I can't do it. He goes, well, you're not fine then. And then I passed the first year of the college course and then went to do my A level in the second half of the year. And I ended up quitting. My mental health just went so bad. I'm like, no, I can't do this anymore. My stress levels are up. I'm not sleeping. I'm not eating properly. And then I got a referral for a mental health act assessment, which is basically what happens there is it's a referral from the physician to the mental health service team, who then assess if you're an emergency or if you can wait. And then I was rushed through as an emergency because they put I self-harmed, which I didn't. But for some reason I got rushed through as a self-harm emergency. And then it took, from, this is 2013, 14, 2013. And it took 6 months for me to get an appointment. And then I was diagnosed beginning of February 2014. So.
And how did the diagnosis shift your life for the better, if there was one?
Yeah, so I think there's two parts to this question, because when you get diagnosed, it kind of clicks as to why I've always been so different and why I've always kind of been the outsider, the sort of one who wasn't wanted or kind of wasn't understood. And now I'm like, why did I be like that? Why was I always the one that was seen as awkward or inappropriate and always labeled as, oh, she's just socially awkward and she's just acting out? And I'm like, no, I wasn't acting out, because now I know I'm autistic, and that's the reason why I acted like I did back when. But at the same point now, it's changed my life so much for the better, because I'm like, I've moved out of my mum's house. I've moved in to my father's for a while, lived with him, and kind of got used to being diagnosed. And then my dad had to give up his house. I moved in with my sister, so I had to move into my own house where I am now. And I never ever thought my wildest dreams that I would end up living on my own. I just didn't ever see it in my head working. And I'm like, the thought of moving on my own, I cried for weeks. I'm like, I've actually got to be on my own now. This is serious. I'll be the grown up that everyone expects me to be all the time. I'm like, I've got to pay rent. I've got to start paying bills. I've got to budget my money. I've got to make sure I cook for myself and clear up after myself. And the first, probably about 3 months I lived my own, I cried every day. I was constantly crying. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I can't. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live on my own. My dad's like, you've got to, Gemma. You've got no choice. And
it is a rough adjustment for anyone, let alone somebody on the spectrum like us.
Yeah, it was, the change was quite surreal, because it's kind of, you deal with going from being with a family member who's kind of mollycoddled me and overprotected me, and then it's like all of a sudden, oh no, Gemma, now you're welcome to the real world. You're gonna have to do everything yourself. So it's kind of, what do I do now? I've just had this paper given to me. Now I'm like, welcome to the real world. It's like, oh, now what? So it's kind of been a massive adjustment.
Absolutely. And how do you feel like you're handling it now?
That's a good question. I guess it's vital, important that I've learned to speak up for people who potentially can't. And I think also for me, it's given me the confidence that I've needed, because I've always been this kind of person who doubted herself, always kind of looked down on myself. I'm like, but I can't. And people are like, Gemma, will you stop that? And I'm like, but I can't. And they're like, Gemma, if I hear the word I can't again, you're going to be in big trouble. And I'm like, okay. And then they're like, Gemma, tell yourself you can. I'm like, okay, fine. And it got in my head after a while. I'm like, okay, I can do this. I can try to do this. I can do it. And now with being on my own, I love it. The more isolation, the better. I love being on my own. Quiet. It's routine. When the world sucks, I can disappear and do what I need to. So, yeah.
Hell yeah. I would like to talk about something that if there's, God forbid, there's one way to spot somebody that's autistic that the world is still getting used to, and that is stimming. And something that people like us are forced to do, as opposed to it, is masking.
Oh,
Are there
yes.
are there any stims you tend to do, and how often do you try to hide them these days, if you try to hide them?
Oh, yes. Stimming, I try and hide on a daily basis. It's so hard
Yeah.
because when you've got people looking up to you and they see you as this role model and this inspirational figure, and you're expected to be this normal, calm, collected, functional person, which
Which
I'm
neurotypicals aren't even that. Let's be
no,
honest.
let's be honest. Exactly. This is the thing, brother. Like, I don't like the word normal. When people say to
Yeah.
people like us, "Oh, you're so normal. You're so functional," I'm just like, I'm sorry, what? Because I stim now more now than I used to because
Hmm.
I have to, because our bodies need that recovery. They need that self-soothing time to
Yeah.
calm down. So for me, like, it might not be obvious. Sometimes I might twirl the bottom of my hair, just run my fingers through my hair like that, or I may play with my fingers,
I'm doing
or
that right now.
yeah, or I may clasp my hands and just move my hands around. Like, I have my bracelet, so I've been sitting here just rolling my bracelet on my wrist, just going like that, because it helps to keep me calm. And people are like, "Why are you fidgeting? Why can't you keep still?" And I'm like,
Yeah, I hate that question so
ah,
much. I don't get that question that much anymore, because people now most people who know me on a personal level do understand it. But as a kid, I got that question a lot, and I know that most kids that asked me did mean well, but some of them were blatantly malicious, and you could tell.
yeah, of course. So I get that occasionally. Like, I think back in when I was a child, like, people would say to me, "Oh, why does Gemma kick off? Like, why is she so blunt and rude, and why does she walk off when you're talking to her?" And I'm like, to me, I didn't think it was rude. I'd answered the question, I'd done what I was expected to do, and I thought, okay, now I can go and have Gemma time. I can do what I want, but at the same time, now I know I'm like, that's because my autism has given me so much sensory overload that I couldn't cope. It was literally, my brain was getting so full up with information. I needed to de-stress, otherwise I'm going to go kabang, because I can't cope with everything that's in my head. So
Yeah, absolutely. It is, and and on the topic of masking, that is honestly something that I'm almost always doing too. Particularly when I'm on camera, like, there have been times where I had to edit out a stim that was a bit too blatant, but when it's live, it just happens. It's whatever. One
I
of my
really don't want people to edit out
I
stims and stuff. Like,
know.
we shouldn't
I don't
we
want to
shouldn't
do
have to
it,
do
but
it.
I always feel like I have to, because
No, you
that's how
don't, because
society has trained me.
yeah, that's how we're expected to be.
It's
But brother, let's
it's
be
technic
honest about it.
it's technical masking is what it is.
Yes, yes. Let's be honest about it, brother. It's us. We have to stim. Everybody stims in different ways. It's kind of something that a lot of people, I guess, on the spectrum like ourselves do. It's a form of self-soothing, if you will, kind of self-stimulating behavior. Which for me, it actually really makes me feel a lot more calm quickly. Because if I'm anxious and because I have long hair, I'm able
Yeah.
to just go, "Oh, okay, I can just sit here and fiddle," and people will just think, "Oh, Gemma's just being a bit silly," but actually, I can just sit and go, "Oh, I'm just talking," and and people are like, "Oh," and they look at me, "What are you doing, Gemma?" I'm like, stimming because I need to, and my
Also,
body
people
is
twirl their hair all the time. I mean, I don't at the moment, but people do that.
yeah.
It's a thing. People do that to flirt, for God's sake.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And so I think for us, it's just a way of having to cope in a society that doesn't necessarily understand us. And I think they see it as, oh, it has to be stopped. It's bad. It shouldn't be allowed. You shouldn't be allowed to stim. And I'm like, who gives you the right to tell me if I can or can't stim? I'm not going to be ashamed of doing a stim if I need to in public. Like, if I go out for a walk and I get overwhelmed, then I'm going to twirl my hair, or I might click my finger, and I'm like, I'm not doing no harm to no one.
Yeah,
Therefore, it's my health versus you being uncomfortable. Sorry, but not sorry.
exactly. It's I literally just made this up, but this is a form of comfort vampiring, they're stealing our comfort in the name of their own, basically, whether
Yes.
they realize that or not.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think people need to realize, stimming isn't a bad thing. It's something you should encourage your autistic friend, autistic loved one, autistic work colleague to do, because it will help be more productive. It will help them to feel less anxious. Because would you rather have someone who's highly anxious and depressed, or would you rather have someone who's calm, collected, and logical? It's it's
I would take the former because I trust them more because they're being real.
Yes, exactly. This is the thing. Like, societal puts on such a constraint for us. It's like, oh well, you have to do as you're told. You have to act this way, and it's like, no, I don't.
Exactly. Absolutely. So let's talk a bit about scripting.
Oh yes, love a
Because
topic.
on one of your recent videos, you mentioned that when talking to the camera, aside from formats like this where we're talking to each other, but when you're just talking to the camera, you prefer to have a script to keep yourself on track, which I
Yes.
absolutely get, and it's something that I wished I did more often because I struggle to write the script in the first place. Because when I'm writing, my mind is always all over the place, so I usually do my videos unscripted and lose track of what I'm doing constantly. I have to make a lot of edits, but you have your script in front of you so that you can just go, 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 go.
Yeah.
And uh, so my question to you, my first question to you anyway, is how are you able to focus when you're writing your scripts? That's something that I'm mainly asking for me, but also asking for the audience that may like to know for their own
Yeah.
struggles.
So writing a script for me, I guess, is a form of visual stimming, if you will. It's kind of,
Okay.
I have to have that safety knowing that I don't go on a waffle or a tangent and go completely wreck my video, because every topic that I usually do is to do with the general public, or will be something that is coming to the autism community. I think, oh, hold on, Gemma, maybe you should film about this, because the autistic community and disabled community needs to know the news. So I try and keep it to the point. I reference articles if I use them, or websites. And the more structured that I am in my head, because I, as you know, I'm highly anxious, and I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
if I muck this video up and I sound like I don't know what I'm on about, people are going to laugh at me. They like to have facts, they like to have the punch point. It's like everything has to be boom, 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 boom in order. So then they go, oh, Gemma knows what she's on about. She's got the start line, she's got the middle introduction, she's got her end. So now it's like boom, boom, boom. You know what you're getting, and then there's no worry of me going, what did I just talk about? Why did I say that? Because as soon as I have my script, I'm like, introduction, Gemma. Do your reasoning, do your theory, and then do your end. So it's kind of, that's how I work. And I think scripting is so important because, again, for us, people who are neurodiverse or on the autistic spectrum, it helps alleviate, for me anyway, my anxiety, my depression, because I find if I have to do a unscripted video, or I'm out in the community where I'm filming, when I go out on the train, or if I go out and watch a local tribute act, I panic. I get so irate in my
Mm-hmm.
head. I'm like, what do I say? What do I do? How do I introduce the
Totally.
plan? And I lose myself. I'm like, no, can't do this. No, 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 no. And I just end up shutting down. I'm like, no, that was bad. That was real bad.
Yeah, I feel you 100%. Um, so I wish I had a script for this right now. Uh, One thing I would love to talk about that I'm glad I wrote down. I did write down some notes, not a script, but some notes.
Good.
Uh,
Well done.
is that something that and everyone knows that autism is a wide spectrum. A lot of people on the spectrum are different from each other in relation to their
Yeah.
diagnosis. But one thing that we all have in common, that even neurotypicals have in common with us, but especially is true for us, is that we have a few select deep-seated passions.
Oh yes.
It's some things that we are hyper focused on, uh, totally obsessed with in a good way. That works to our benefit. What are some of yours?
Oh yes, okay. How do I keep this brief? Well, a lot of people know from my channel and for your audience, I'm a big Elvis Presley fan. Big
Nice.
Elvis Presley fan, and it's weird how I got into it actually. So my late aunt June, God rest her soul, she passed away of cancer 6 years
Mm.
ago, and she was a big Elvis fan. And I went round to her house a few times, and she said to me, "Oh, I want you to listen to this music." And I was like, "What's this?" And she goes, "Elvis." I'm like, "Who is Elvis?" I had no clue who he was, so I
Really?
knew that he was some kind of famous person. And she's
Yeah.
like, "Gemma, you'll fall in love with him like I have." I'm like, "Okay." So she puts this CD on, and she goes, "Just sit and listen." I'm like, "Okay." So I sat there and I listened and I listened and I listened. I must have listened to about 4 hours. This Elvis CD she had. I'm like, I burst into tears, and she went, "Why are you crying?" I'm like, "I don't know. Why am I crying? I don't know." And she cuddled me. I cuddled her, and we were talking. And she goes, "Gemma, I'm going to give you something that I want you to keep for the rest of your life." I'm like, "Okay." And she gave me a Elvis choker necklace, which is actually in my memory box in the corner of my bedroom.
Oh, that's very
And it's a
sweet.
black and white little choker necklace with an Elvis picture in. And she goes, "I want you to have this." I'm like, "Why would I wear that? I don't usually like things on my neck. I'm very touchy about having certain jewelry on my neck."
I
She
feel that.
goes, and she's like, "Just keep it." I'm like, "Fine, okay." And then before she died, we went to an Elvis tribute who I've been following religiously, and she introduced me to him. And she was the last thing I want to do. She knew she was going to pass away. She's like, "I want to see an Elvis tribute." So me and my cousins, my mum, my stepdad, and everything else went to this Elvis tribute, and I didn't realize how attached to this Elvis tribute she actually was. And I got to meet him. He comes up to me and he goes, "How do you know June?" That's what my auntie's name was. Like, she's my aunt. Like, she's been my aunt since I was about 6 or 7. And he was like, "You do realize she's been supporting me for years, right?" I went, "No." And she's like, and he comes over to me and gets all these pictures on his phone and like shows me all these like slideshow pictures. I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then he took a picture of me, him, and her in her wheelchair, and we started dancing with her on in the field in the pub. And but she died about a week later, and he rang me the day of her funeral and said, "Can I come sit with you in the funeral?" I'm like, "Yeah." He turned up all in an Elvis costume, brought flowers, everything. He was just so amazing. And then he took us to the pub after the funeral and was like, come to one of my gigs, I'll come pick you up." So he came to my flat where I am now and picked me up and brought me home. And since then I've just gone to nearly every gig that he's done in the last 6 years. I've been following him religiously, and I think that's my connection to keep my auntie alive. For me, it's something that she got me into. So
That's really touching. I was not expecting such a touching story, but I'm really glad you shared it.
yeah, my auntie was really special to me. Like, she was someone who knew that I had issues with my behavior, and she knew that I was suffering with things. And when I got diagnosed, I actually said to her on the phone, I was like, I'm not bad. I'm not broken. I'm not ill, am I?" And she's like,
Yeah.
"Why have you got that in your head, Gemma? Why would you say that?" I'm like, "Because that's what society thinks about me." She's like, "If I ever hear anyone say that to you, Gemma," she went, "then they get Auntie June and a rant." And she got so angry. She's like, and she would rub her hands, go like this, and she's like, "There'll be trouble, Gemma." I'm like, "Okay." So she always defended me. So yeah, I'm really lucky that I had that time to talk about Elvis with her. And talking of Elvis, I can actually show your audience this is the latest Elvis film DVD that I recently got through the mail.
Oh,
Incredible, incredible film. If you don't know about Elvis's story, go watch it. Absolutely amazing film. I've actually seen this 3 times in the theatre, plus I got this delivered yesterday. I could not recommend this film enough. Definitely get your hand on it if you can.
I love it. I'll have to check it out, and I recommend that everybody watching check it out too. Um, yeah, it's I'm kind of in a similar boat when it comes to when it comes to chess, because my late grandpa, who unfortunately passed away from pancreatic cancer when I was only 6,
Oh, I'm sorry.
he was the world to me. I stayed at my grandparents' house on weekdays to go to school because I went to kindergarten at a school near them rather than near where my parents and I lived. Um, but after he passed, I transferred to another school more close by. But um, while he was here, he taught me a few memorable skills. He taught me how to play chess. He taught me how to use computers. He taught me rowing, and most importantly, he taught me how to be a good person. Not that my parents didn't, but there was something really special about the way my grandpa did it. But I became so obsessed with chess for a very long time. It's been a while since I played it now. I still play it every now and then, but for most of my childhood and early adulthood, I played it all the time. One of my one of my favorite things that he taught me about chess is the way the knight moves. It moves 2 spaces and then 1 to the side. He called it 1-2 boom. So if anybody hears me calling that move 1-2 boom, that's why. That's how I was taught.
So I think chess is quite a logical game for us. We're quite logical people. We rely
Yeah.
on logic, we rely on facts and order. So chess is quite a good game for a lot of us who like focus and need to know the pieces, how to move them. And I used to play chess when I was younger, back in school. I was part of a chess club,
Nice. Me too.
and it was kind of, I guess, where my obsessions began, because I used to get so obsessed about needing to win the game. Everything was about winning. I couldn't lose. My teacher's
That's
like,
how my
Gemma,
sis. That's how my sister was, to the point where sometimes when we would start a game, she would take her queen and just knock my king over immediately before we even started playing.
yeah, my teacher would be like, Gemma, that's not the point. Like, the point is about enjoying yourself and, getting to know what the game of chess is about,
Yeah,
and
and working
learning
your
how to
mind.
be, yeah, working in line, taking part. I'm like, but when you play games about winning, my teacher's like, no, Gemma. I'm like, oh, I get so frustrated. But now looking back at it, I'm like, it taught me teamwork, it taught me skills, it taught me
Yeah,
patience. And now I look back at it, I'm like, wow, Gemma, you've actually developed that into a YouTube channel, because I've learned how to time my videos, I've learned how to talk to people, and I think YouTube and online media has been the best thing for that, because you're able to distance yourself from people, you're actually able to understand the other person, and with you, it's an instant friendship. So for me, I'm like, oh, I can make friends with people without being like I'm some kind of weirdo.
well, let's be honest. As Minx Lore 123 says, weird is good.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, earlier in our days, we've been taught that being weird is a bad thing. There are good kinds of weird, and there are bad kinds of
Bad times are
or
weird.
bad kinds of weird. We all know that, but oftentimes, even to this day, a lot of people let the bad kinds of weird overshadow the good kinds of weird, and that's sad, because the good kinds of weird is what makes life worth living. It makes life enjoyable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Living a normal, boring life just creates a lot of unnecessary depression. Not even the disorder related kind. Just being infinitely sad and not being motivated or enjoying anything like that. For lack of a better way to put it, but you get my point.
Yeah.
You got to have a little bit of good weirdness in your life, just to spice it up, you know?
Absolutely. I'm proud to be unique and weird in my own way,
Yeah.
because again, like you said, normal is such a stereotypical word, and I dislike that word so much, because when people say to
Yeah.
me, "Oh, Gemma, well, you appear so normal and you're so calm," and I'm like, please don't
Normal
patronize me.
normal is just a code word for what we expect of you, but it's an unrealistic expectation because humans are not supposed to be the same. We're supposed to all be different in our own ways. It's what
Yeah,
makes us
exactly.
it's what makes us special. If you want something normal and same, get a game console.
No, yeah, yeah.
Even PCs aren't that way if they're built. I had to bring that up because I recently built a new PC because my old PC was starting to show its age like crazy and some parts were failing, and I decided, you know what, it was time to build a new PC. In fact, I have a couple of dead RAM sticks in front of it. Um, I'm
Oh,
I'm gonna
okay.
I'm gonna give them to my sister because she does a lot of work with scrap parts, and I wrote memory is RAM because one of my favorite shows of all time, the IT Crowd. There was a scene where
Oh, okay.
yeah, there was it's a for those who don't know the IT Crowd, it's about three people who work in the IT department in a giant company that they never ever establish what the company actually does in the entire series. But that's not even the important part. But they have a dinner party at Jen's house, and she's one of the three in the IT department, and the other two guys, Roy and Moss, are stereotypical IT nerds that are not very that don't really understand social cues that much, especially Moss. But what Jen said is to say things that would interest anybody. Nothing about memory or RAM. And then Moss said, "Memory is RAM."
Nice.
I freaking love that show, and Moss is definitely my favorite character of that show, without a
Yeah,
doubt.
I
I
must
freaking
admit,
love him.
my favorite TV show is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'm addicted to that show. I've been
Oh
following that
man,
show since I was like 11.
wow, that is such a classic. I've maybe seen one or two episodes, but my sister was really into that show. I need to start watching that.
I do
That's
actually have a Buffy, what I call a Buffy memory box behind me, just over here. It's a big plastic storage container. It's actually full of Buffy books and Buffy jewelry and other Buffy like script books. And people are like, Gemma, when are you going to use them? I'm like, it's not about using them. It's about memory. It's about a show that I've loved, that I still love. I still watch it. And even only 34, that still feels relevant to me. I still sympathize with being like, I guess part of this, she used to call her friends the Scooby Gang. I'm like, I fit into that circle. I'm like, I'm one of the nerds. I research a lot of things. I'm very
yeah.
about accepting people. When I'm like, I'm a Scooby Gang. I'm a Scooby Gang member. Hell yeah, I'm happy to be one of the weird ones. I'm good.
Totally. Um, so speaking of obsessions, I want to talk because this, as y'all know, is a channel that is mainly about ASMR and interviewing ASMR artists. So let's talk a little bit about ASMR because that is how we know each other.
Yes, it is.
What is it that got you into ASMR originally?
Yeah, so ASMR for me was something that I was trying to research because I was having sleep issues and high anxiety issues. This started
Yeah.
back in 2007, 8. I was having problems, and people were like, "Oh, just go onto YouTube, type ASMR or relaxation into YouTube." I'm like, "What? What's that?" And then I found Laura's channel, and then I met you through on Laura, and I was like, "What is relaxation? What is ASMR? What's it mean?" And I remember getting into a channel, and I'm like, I think it's like tongue clicking and something else. I'm like, "What is this? Why is it relaxing?" And I remember putting my headphones in, going, okay, how do people do that? Like, why is that relaxing? Why is it? Also, it's like I went into a trance. It was like I got so lost in the sound. It was just like I just switched off. And I remember sitting here one night, and my dad was round having dinner. And he goes, "Gemma, hello, Gemma," and I'm like, I was just completely zoned out. And my dad's like, "Gemma, you're not even at half your dinner yet." I'm like, "I'm ready for bed," and he's like, "Gemma, it's like 7:45 at night. Like, you can't go to bed yet because you'll sleep until like midnight and be up all day." So I was like, "Okay." So I remember eating my dinner, and I put on a video, and I'm like, it was like I think it's get ready for sleep or something. So I was like, "Get ready for sleep." I'm like, wow, people talking really soothes me. Like, I could feel myself like nodding off to the story, and I'm like, what is this? Why is it affecting me? And I kind of just
Yeah.
kept researching it, and I found your channel. And I'm like, what is meditation about? Like, what is guided meditation? I didn't really understand it. I'm like, okay, I'll check this video out. And I fell in love with your guided meditation straight away, like I said earlier. Within 6 minutes of watching the first, like, I think the video was like 20 minutes that you'd done. I'm like, okay, Gemma, I'm gonna fall asleep. I'm like nodding off. I'm like, oh, I remember sleeping. I remember getting up next morning, and your video was still playing on my laptop. I'm like, what? It's still playing. Like, I fell asleep,
Was
and then
on
I went,
repeat?
yeah,
Hmm.
it was on repeat. I left it to play, and I'm like, I woke up about must have been about 6 a.m. my time, and all I could hear was your voice going, shh, everything's okay, and I'm like, what was that? Like, what? How does this work? I remember messaging you on Nora's comment section. I'm like, what is this? Like, how come I really liked it and I enjoyed it? And I remember you talking to me. I'm like, we've got to connect on social media. And I remember just falling off your channel pretty much since then. And I'm like, I watch your channel all the time. Literally,
Oh,
you, Laura, and Hermie. Like, you're my go-to. Like, every time I need a video, I'm just like, click, go onto your video. I'm like, bang, I'm good.
definitely. I appreciate that. And shout out to Laura and Hermie. Laura and Hermie, if you're watching this, please come on the show. Laura's been on the show before years ago. I'd love to have you back on. And Hermie, I'd love to have you on as well. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, you three guys are my ASMR pros. Like, I watch you guys religiously, and I think it shows how we've all grown, and we've all come a long way since being on YouTube. And I think it's something that a lot of people should get into. ASMR is not a bad thing. I want to put
Not
this
at
out
all.
there and clarify it. Please, people, stop looking at ASMR as a sexual thing. It's
Thank
not
you.
sexual at all. It's not. It's not. It's not. I've listened to ASMR, watched ASMR, whatever you want to call it, for over 10 years, and I've never found any sexual clips
Yeah.
ever.
They
It's
they do they
relaxation.
do exist, but that's true about literally every genre in media ever.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: ASMR is a new kind of thing. It's still in its infancy, so it's getting the kind of scrutiny that video games did, that rock and roll did, even books did when they first came about.
Yeah.
It went through those own thing like rock and roll is the devil's music, video games only for nerdy young boys that don't know anything and have no life, and now ASMR is getting the stigma of being sexual or creepy or whatever the case may be. But fortunately, that's becoming less and less the case because it's becoming more and more mainstream. People are
Mainstream.
becoming
Yeah.
more aware of what it is. When I started, it was already going in that direction. But when I first discovered it, it was like at the tail end of commonly being seen that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I first saw ASMR being done by Game Grumps, and they did it in a way that was parody, and they made it clear that they really like it and it's a really good form of media. And I only got to see the parody side, so I got a good laugh at it. I didn't think it was
Yeah.
sexual at all, but I didn't really understand what the point of it was until about a year later when I saw Review Tech USA put out his unboxing of the NES Classic. I've told about this hundreds of thousands of times by now, but yeah, because he pointed out that he listens to them to help him sleep. That's what sold me on ASMR, because I too have struggled with sleep issues my entire life, still this day do, but ASMR has been a godsend for me, and I became an ASMRist because I wanted to give back, but also I love just making videos in general. I love filmmaking, and I wanted to combine the two, so here I am.
Yeah, I think one of your videos that I watched, which I fell in love with, was when you did the tapping on the games console controllers, and
Yeah.
that
It's
video
funny.
really
I
did
just shot
that.
it. I just shot a new one of those last night at the time of recording it, because the last one I put out as of the time of recording this was one where I do controller sounds really fast, and I
Yes.
just recorded one that is much slower, and instead of 1 minute per controller, it's now 3 minutes per controller. Um, and I did this because somebody requested in the comments. So I do take requests in the comments of my videos.
Yes, you do.
As
Yes.
long as it's A, appropriate, and B, something that I can do and it's not going to bankrupt me per se. That's why
Yes, of course.
that's why I don't do enough role plays, because I know nothing about cosplaying, and I have like a few wigs and don't really have any proper costumes or anything like that. I'm not a costume person at all. So most of my role plays rely on my voice impressions.
Yeah, I was
That's
gonna say how, as an autistic person like myself, I want to find out about this. When you're doing role plays, how do you cope with like the clothing changes? Like, how does it feel like when you're putting costumes and makeup on?
Fortunately for me, that's never really been that much of an issue. I'm on the part of the spectrum where it doesn't bother me so much, but as a small child, it did. I don't know if it's autism related. If it is, I may have outgrown that part, because I know that some people can outgrow some parts of autism. I don't think anyone can fully outgrow it. I think that's BS. But
Yeah,
people do change and evolve from
yeah, of course.
within time. And so, yeah, putting on a different kind of costume doesn't really bother me. It's more that I want to be financially frugal, and I don't know I just have no fashion sense. That's the real thing. I have no fashion sense whatsoever. I'm sorry, Mom. My mom is obsessed with fashion, has a whole library of fashion magazines, and her son is the exact opposite when it comes to things like that.
I can't
I just
stand
wear
fashion.
I just wear I just wear what's comfortable and simple. That's how I do it.
Yeah. It's like for me, like I'm wearing like my Avril Lavigne little baggy t-shirt and one of
Mm-hmm.
my favorite spotty skirts. I'm like, that's comfort to me. I'm like, it's not restrictive. I don't have to worry about being tight or uncomfortable. I'm like, I wear what I want to wear because again, for me, my autism is the fact I can't stand things that are restrictive. I have to have things
Yeah.
baggy and loose because my skin feels like it's got needles going on it. Otherwise, I'm just like, ugh.
Oh. Yeah, I feel that. Gemma, thank you so much once again for coming on. It's been an absolute treat. Before we wrap up, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, so I have my Twitter account, which is at Gemma underscore gems1, which is my Twitter handle if you want to follow me on Twitter. I have my Gemma's Journey Grace private Facebook group. If anyone wants to come and join that, it's a private Facebook group where we discuss autism. I share other people's contents like FamCam, anyone that I'm close to who I feel is my family. I share their content out. I promote them. I also have my obviously my YouTube channel, which is Gemma's Journey Grace. Which if you want to
Nice.
leave me any comments, I am pretty good at responding. And I also have my email in my about description on my channel if you want to reach out to me on email.
Fantastic. Thank you, Gemma. Everybody, please go follow Gemma on our socials. Subscribe to her YouTube channel. Be sure to ring the bell so you don't miss any of her videos. Leave her some lovely comments, and hit the like button on her videos to help boost her in the algorithm. And same thing here. Make sure to subscribe to It's Getting Late. hit the bell so you don't miss another interview. Leave a comment down below. Let us know what you loved about this interview. Leave a thumbs up. Be sure to check my stuff out as well. I'll have a link tree down below in the description so you can find my YouTube, my Twitch, all my socials, yada yada yada, blibbity blue, blah blah. And with that being said, we will see you again next time. And until then, as always, stay chill. Have a good one.